Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock of AA Shop Marketing. Our hope is to unite shop owners to tackle common stress points and challenges that they're experiencing within the auto repair shop space. Our mission is to guide you towards the best solutions for your shop. So tune in, join the conversation, and let's move your business forward. Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock of AA Shop Marketing. And today's topic is what to do with the people who are dropping off their cars and needing another ride. Is it a ride share program? Is it a rental program? Is it a shuttle service? And what is your shop doing about this? How are you approaching it? And what are the challenges that you've experienced in the past? We've got three different shop owners with us today. We've got Stephan from Indiana. We've got Brian from Michigan and another Brian from Iowa. I'm going to let them introduce themselves to talk about their shops and give you a little bit of background on them. So Brian from Finkle Auto, why don't you start us off?
Hello, my name is Brian Toronto with Finkle Automotive, located in Auburn Hills, Michigan. We are a 16-bay drive-through facility, meaning when I say drive-through, we could fit a semi-truck with a 53-foot trailer inside the building that can pull in and pull right through the shop and right out another door. We're in a very populated area. But to answer the question, Brad, that you referred to about how do we handle the shuttles or rentals or whatnot, we shuttle our customers every morning. We'll send a shuttle out in the morning to take the customers to where they got to go, and then we will pick them up in the evening. There is no mid-afternoon but if a customer is in need of a vehicle, we do have an account with Enterprise Rent-A-Car that we get what we'd like to call a sweetheart price on. And we just have Enterprise come as their commercial states. They pick them up, take them to their office, handle all the paperwork. Then the car is returned to me at our shop. We will inspect it, do the return process, and then put the customer in their vehicle and send them on their merry way.
That's interesting. I've got a bunch of different questions jumping in my mind from that. But before we do that, let's just keep rotating. Brian Rooney, how about you tell us about your location and your shop?
Yeah, so my name is Brian Rooney. I have an auto repair and tire center in Northwest Iowa, town of about 3,000 people. So our shop is 6 bays, 4 technicians. So we service about 350 cars a month. We're a pretty busy shop. And yeah, I'm looking forward to learning some stuff about how these other guys are taking care of their customers with rides. And right now we don't really have a system in place. We've let people borrow cars, which is, I'm learning, not the best thing in the world to do. So I'm looking to learn some different ways to put their better.
All right. Good.
So my name is Stephan Carroll. I own Rockford Garage. We have 2 locations, one in Angola, Indiana, which is a population of about 10, maybe 11,000. And then we've got a smaller store in Fremont, Indiana, which population of 1,500 people. My big store has 6 bays and we have 7 technicians in it. We do about $2.6 million in revenue with that store. The smaller store is 6 bays and we have 4 technicians, and we're just under $1 million in revenue at the smaller store. We've ran shuttles, we've ran loaner cars, we've ran just my personal vehicles with customers in it. Done this for 5 years. And I finally broke down and said, hey, I'm just doing my own rental fleet. So we run, and we have 7 vehicles that we run out to customers. And it doesn't matter whether it's an in-store customer or if we have somebody in the community that wants to do a regular rental. We run it like a small enterprise.
That's interesting.
A
Combination.
lot of nasty things to tell about cars.
And cool, good. And I'm hoping to share some of those. But it sounds like everybody isn't doing one thing. Everybody's doing like a combination of things. Is there another accommodation that you make?
We shuttle people around.
Okay. And so, yeah, so it's always it's never a one thing. It's just a primary, right? It really comes down to what the customer's looking for. Do they just need to drop it off and then be picked up at the end of the day? Or are they going to need to go grocery shopping, go to work, et cetera, as to Brian's point from Finkle. So, and Brian, you mentioned about being in that populated area. You're only about 30 miles, it's kind of like the larger, greater Detroit area for people who are listening in. So it's a very different footprint from a population density from Stephan and Mr. Rooney. How did you get to that spot? Why did you choose Enterprise? And what did you try before that did or didn't work?
We tried very briefly. I purchased a vehicle and briefly used it as a loaner or rental vehicle to the customers. And again, insurance did not like it much, but I did have it set up to where the legalities were covered. But it seemed every time that car came back, there was always a problem. Burn hole in the seat or trashed inside or scratched, dented, and the problems it started causing of trying to recuperate any lost revenue from it turned into losing a customer, because now you're battling over a $6,000 car, because let's face it, you're not going to have a car you're loaning out. So now you start getting customers who trash the car, but now you lose that customer in your repair side of things because of that rental or loaner vehicle. So I ended up getting an account with Enterprise, which in turn, I now maintenance Enterprise renter cars in our area. They come in for their oil changes, brakes, tires, and even some of the diagnostics we do for them, because they don't want to go to your big dealership and wait a week to get their car back. And then that's how we started using Enterprise, and I got out of the whole theory of let's loan them out or rent them out ourselves. Let it all be between Enterprise and the customer. So if there is a battle, I'm in the back seat of it, and it's not my issue. I don't risk losing one customer over it.
So the customer is incurring the cost of the rental?
Nope, the customer pays for it, but it is a sweetheart deal. So like normally in this area, Enterprise will rent out an economy vehicle for $45 to $55 a day, where I get a flat rate. If it's one of my customers, they get that car for $20 a day if there's a problem.
My mind is going to whether or not people are bragging about that on your reviews. Like,
I will be honest, Britt, I've never saw one review ever state that was a good thing. I would say in the course of a month, we might send one or two people to Enterprise, because we shuttle in the morning, and generally our turnaround times are relatively quick, unless, of course, it's a head gasket job. But on most vehicles, we can turn a head gasket in a day and a half.
So you're only doing about 2, maybe 3 rentals per month with Enterprise.
That's it. Yes.
Okay. All right. And so you're talking about your so the shuttle service is actually primary. Why don't you talk to us about your setup there?
Yeah, the shuttle service being the primary, we open up our doors, people come in, and then we got a nice shuttle van that will shuttle up to 4 people at a time to work, home, wherever they need to go. And then we always tell our customers, if you can find a way back, it'll be beneficial. But if you cannot, the shuttle service, pending your vehicle is done, will be back to pick you up around 4 p.m.
And that van is a property of yours, or is that another service that you're outsourcing?
No, that is a company-owned vehicle that only employees drive.
Or is there a dedicated employee?
Any employee.
I came across a shop in southern middle of Pennsylvania. The owner of the shop does all of the shuttling, one at a time in his car, and most of his customers, don't even realize he's the owner. They just thought that he's the elderly guy that they hired to shuttle. But he gets to have great conversations with them, he said. So that's interesting. You got a van that does it, and anybody is driving that. Just one of the techs, like, you don't have resource issues as far as trying to make sure that they're available to be turning wrenches, or what?
No, not at all. I mean, if we have an issue where we can't find anyone to do it, I have 3 service advisors.
Okay.
Then I got 9 technicians out in the shop. And if everybody's busy where they can't do it, I've done it many, many times, where I'll hop in it and do what needs to be done.
It doesn't matter where they're going.
Within a 10-mile radius of
10-mile
our
radius
shop.
limit. Okay.
Yeah.
What are the questions you guys have for the Finkle Automotive process here?
I'm just sitting here absorbing what you're doing, and I'm going, maybe I should have a shuttle service, because most of our customers that are going to need a ride or are expecting a vehicle to drive when they bring their car, they're the ones that come in the morning, right? So like before 9 o'clock. So, I mean, I think it's a great idea to have a shuttle service. If we run a shuttle at 9, and then, like you said, Brian, run a shuttle again at 4 to pick everybody up, then everybody's back in time to square up on their bill and be done before closing time.
Yep. And
that's a great idea.
Well, how are you doing it right now?
So right now, Most of the time, recently, my wife has been giving people rides home when they come in.
On an individual basis. It's a one-on-one, like, right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be. She likes doing it, so it's pretty good. It's a good situation for us, and she's available for that. When she's not here, though, I wind up doing it, or pull the tire guy off of his jobs that he's doing, or a loop tech, and have them go because my other technicians are on more profitable jobs that I don't want to pull a technician off of to give somebody a ride. But yeah, it can be a real problem at times, not having someone to get those people where they need to go, where they want to go, if they don't want to sit and wait. We have a decent sized waiting area. When somebody's got to sit there for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, nice part about not having them do that is they're not sitting there making the service writer nervous that somebody's twiddling their thumbs. You guys probably have all experienced that. Somebody's sitting there on the other side of the counter watching you work, listening to your phone calls with other customers. It's uncomfortable. So getting them out of the waiting room is an important thing. But yeah, so my wife takes care of most of that. But yeah, we're gonna consider a shuttle something.
Interesting. Now at Finkle Automotive, is there a lot of waiting?
No. We allow any jobs that's an hour or less, we'll have people wait. But anything more than that, we try to encourage them to let us give them a ride where they need to go.
Well, tell everybody about the waiting environment. Is it also right on top of the service desk and everyone's
No, when you walk through my front door, you have to your right, you have my service writers in an office with windows. Then you have to walk down a short hall, make a left, and then you make another turn, and you're in a big waiting area with a TV, chairs, and all that, where I was a firm believer that my waiting customers would not hear what's going on with the day-to-day operations within the internal workings. So they're put far enough away where they're not seen unless they want to be seen.
Right.
They'll come walking up, but it's kind of a nice setup to where they're out of sight, and so is my team.
Interesting.
Sounds luxurious to me.
Yeah. This afternoon, Brian's going down to either the Lowe's or the Home Depot to buy building supplies to build a wall partition in between the service desk with a little window that you got to slide open.
Well, so the shop I had before this was
gourmet meal and everything.
And I'm sorry, we both spoke at the same time.
I was saying, that was like Finkle Auto and Truck offers gourmet meal at the same time.
Is there a third room where there's a kitchen and yeah, so that's nice.
Actually, there is, Brad.
So good. I came across a shop where they had really posh recliner leather chairs, multiple setups, and they also had an enormous TV screen and a video game console. The Xbox was just sitting there. They were encouraging those who waited to be immersed in video gaming, I guess. But so I don't know how often that got used, but it was an interesting setup, right? Let's actually get them immersed, because I know from watching my son, when he's video gaming, like the house could be on fire and he wouldn't know, right? So
That's a real thing.
So, Stephan, we haven't actually delved into your situation just yet. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, you've got a hybrid going on. Do most people rent or do most people shuttle? What's the setup? Go ahead.
I would say that we half to 2/3 prefer shuttling over rental. A lot of that reasoning is just because our rentals are almost always out. Our shuttle service is kind of a lot like Brian. We have more or less one dedicated employee that if a customer comes in and they need a ride, she just hops in one of our company vehicles and she'll shuttle them wherever they need to go. In our big store and our smaller store, we do a lot more of going and pick up the customer's vehicle and bringing it back to the shop and then shuttling them around. That worked out pretty well.
So there's no formal van. It's a one-on-one ride every time. Right. That's very time consuming, but also very personable.
It is very time consuming. The lady, her position is a front counter assistant. So she's kind of like a hybrid between just a customer service rep and a service advisor. Very talkative, loves people. To her, that job is a dream come true. When somebody comes in with a ride, it's a great customer relation. It's a good way to get her to know the customer and kind of get a sense of their personality. It kind of gives us just a different touch to the community than what most of the other shops around offer. Like I said, probably a third of the customers prefer the rent because they like being independent, running around in their own time.
I want to ask about the knowledge that she's gaining about the customer. How are you capturing that?
It's all in her head.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
She'll come back and tell us a lot of stories. So, it's what's in her head and then what she relays back to us. So,
have you considered trying to get more relayed or maybe captured into your CRM?
we haven't yet.
I mean, it's hard to capture stories, right? I don't know if you sent a birthday card to their kid because you knew when his birthday was, that might get someone's attention.
Yeah.
So Finkle's the only one with the actual official shuttle van, and that's how it's done. There's no individual car rides, or if it is, it's very, very rare. And that shuttle's going out every day, and the time is very specific at the end of the day, or is it flexible as far as is it 3:30 or 4:00 when they're going around and picking everybody up?
It's mostly stamped in stone. It leave out at 8 a.m. for shuttle and then picks up between 4 and 4:30. But I'd be lying if I said we didn't adjust it occasionally to fit the situation. If a customer really needed a favor done, we're not going to turn them down, but we try to stick within that schedule.
And so if they don't fit in that schedule, their working hours go until 5:00 and they can't leave before that, then it's go down to enterprise.
Yes, exactly. It sounds cruel, but for $20 to get a car rolled for the rest of the day and overnight into the next, sometimes can save some headaches for everybody.
Right. $20 is nothing. So it's almost something that you could potentially promote more and potentially get more, but you don't need to necessarily. I mean, Enterprise has already become a customer in your area of yours, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So how long did that take?
Yeah, we've been doing it now with Enterprise for right about 12 years.
I'm wondering how long that you were sending people their way until they became a customer of yours.
2 weeks at most.
So it was fast.
Yeah, it was pretty quick because the service provider they were using, they weren't happy with. And I got lucky.
Timing. Nice. Okay. And so you don't have to worry about the contracts. I don't even know if the shuttle van was in an accident, God forbid, and somebody got hurt. I guess it just goes back to your auto insurance.
Yeah, I'd go back to
you got high BI, bodily injury on that because you got multiple passengers.
Yep. One thing that worried me was sometimes you have to have a lot of legalities or be a chauffeur driver. But where that comes into play is if you're doing the shuttle for profit.
Oh,
where the shop
so there's no charge for this shuttle service. It's
no charge for the shuttle service, which has to be explained.
Interesting. So at Finkle, he described the evolution of dealing with the junked up $6,000 car. Stephan, you've had a similar experience. You used to actually just loan out those cars. What was your evolution experience and what was the timeline for that?
So my evolution experience, we had just cheap cars that we were getting out to people. Yet surprisingly enough, they were very disrespectful with them. I kind of drew my line in the sand with the older vehicles. It was probably in about 2019. I had a customer in one of my personal vehicles, one of my spares. I was already doing a pro bono job for her. She had gas hits on her vehicle and just a bad situation home life. I'm like, all right, well, I'll just do it on my own time. You can drive my car. In the meantime, she wrecked my car. And she didn't have money to pay for deductible and it totaled the car. So I lost my car, had to pay my deductible and its cylinder heads on a 3.4 GM for free too. So it kind of burnt me, put a bad taste in my mouth. So I quit doing it in general for about 2 years. And then in 2021, I wanted to provide that convenience to our customers. So we have an Enterprise in town, but they're pretty much reservation only. They don't have an inventory of cars. So that was kind of out of the picture for us. And then we don't offer Uber or whatever all those ride services are in either of our two towns. So I initially went and I bought 7 brand new Chevy Traxxas because I thought, well, if I buy a brand new vehicle, maybe it'll get respected better. And it helps us look very professional. So we got brand new vehicle, decaled on. Originally, they were just a courtesy vehicle. And when something's a courtesy, they still take advantage of you and return it crash. So at that point in time, I was really, really mad about it because I just spent $10,000 for a vehicle. And they were with horse manure because we got a lot of Amish around our area. We'd have people that haul Amish around and filling the cars with horse manure. And yeah, I mean, you may smoking weed in the cars.
They were taking the courtesy car, and then they were actually doing ride shares for profit.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Way to lower their expenses.
Yeah.
The box.
I was getting pretty upset about that whole situation. So I thought, you know what, let's throw a rental charge on it and see how it goes. And we did. We sent all the 7 cars we put through a heavy detail, got them looking brand new again, nice and shiny. Started renting them out originally for $25 a day. And I completely changed the whole perspective of how that operation was. And we kind of did a hybrid where we were renting to some people and then others. It was kind of a courtesy. That kind of got real hairy, really, because if another customer catches one of that, well, why did they get it for free and we didn't? So we went through the headache of that and made a full-on rental service. It was actually probably just about 6 months ago that it became a full-on rental service. And running is a whole separate entity. It has nothing to do with our main business. It's its own business entirely. And we've even got it on our website. Customers can go on there. It looks like Enterprise Rent a Car where they pick a car they want. They put the banking information in and we get paid right then and there from the website. So outside customer, or not customer, an outside rental is $75 a day. Internal rental is $50 a day unless they join our loyalty program. If they join our loyalty program, it's $25. And we never get any ever. And the cars, for the most part, get returned in a relatively good condition. But we are very forward and very front with our contract. Hey, if we have to clean it, it's $1,000. Smoke in our car, it's $1,000. They're fully aware that they're responsible for the condition of our vehicle.
Okay.
And surprisingly, the one that gets me, the people who smoke marijuana in their car, you know, you wouldn't think that'd be a thing, but it is a thing, and it smells their car to high heaven.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Do you refer them to the police? Yeah. So there's probably some stories, and you know, it's, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking, I'm sorry. Now I'm going to push back a little bit further on that, right? What if you found crack or a gun?
Well,
I found both.
we might turn that into the police.
Okay.
But as far as you were talking about the tri-state area in Ohio, in Michigan, marijuana legal. So,
right.
You know, there's a pop store half a mile up the street from us here in Fremont.
There's probably, I guess, Brian, Rooney, do you want to share any horror stories from some of the cars? I mean, you've loaned out cars ever?
Yeah. And I've been really, really lucky. Maybe we have like premium level customers, but our stuff has always, you know, for 6 years, everything's always come back in the condition it left in. We've had our vehicles loaned out to a customer for a week and a half at a time. They bring them back, you know, they haven't trashed them. Don't smoked in them, and they usually fill them up with gas before they bring them back. Maybe that's the, you know, people say Iowa nice is a thing. Maybe it's an Iowa nice thing. I don't know. I've been lots of other places where people are just as nice, if not nicer than Iowa folks. No, we've been really lucky, I guess.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to maybe change that a little bit before we have an unlucky situation.
Yeah, well, my mind goes to not just the trashing of the car, but also an auto accident, right? Like that was that just completely fell on you, Stephan, when it happened, but it was also a personal vehicle that was attached to it. You know, if it's a business, if it's a shop-owned vehicle and the person who wasn't your customer, who was hit by your customer, like, what does that suit look like? Do they come after the shop for health expenses? I don't even know. I'm not a lawyer.
Absolutely. That was what was presented to me and why I'm with the company I'm with. The company I'm with is Lancer Insurance. And like I said, they deal solely with rentals and that. It's all that liability from anything tied to your business all along the customer's vehicle insurance, just like Enterprise Rental. They made it very clear to me that if they have an accident in your car that's insured by your business, they're coming after your business. There's no formal contract. Their insurance upon you. And that was a pretty harsh reality when they sat me down and told me, hey, you're going to lose everything if somebody gets in a bad enough accident.
Yeah. Yeah, depending on the lawsuit or the number of people that are injured and what the extent of their injuries are. Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's a scary situation. You definitely want to protect yourself from those types of things. Interesting. And so, Brian, you've not had any accidents either. No car accidents. No, the car's been in good condition. And the car that you're sending out, is it a newer, nicer car, or is it a...
Most of them are just like late 2012 Chevy pickups. We got a couple of those. We have a 2012 Nissan Sentra, which that one never goes out when the weather's bad or in the winter. Because I feel like if I have a customer in something 4-wheel drive in the wintertime, they're less likely to get in an accident if there's snow and ice on the ground. But yeah, I guess I've kind of just always had that mindset of, it's not going to happen to me. And I don't know when the switch happened. I think when we started talking about having this conversation, that was when I really thought, well, I'm hearing more and more bad things have happened with all their shops, vehicles that let their customers drive and didn't like on a rental contract, no charge rental contract, and they just big trouble because somebody got hurt or the vehicle got totaled and they're out that vehicle, and then they lose a customer because the customer's mad that right insurances weren't in place to take care of it. If something happened, then it sounds like it's a bad deal all around. They're just not doing it the right way.
I think it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen.
Right. I don't want to have that day. Because you have.
No.
I'm planning to learn from other people's experiences instead of my own. This one anyways.
Now, the cars that you have, you didn't deck them out by putting decals on them or anything like that. They're just everyday cars.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of them have our Rooney's Auto logos on the doors.
Okay.
They sit out by the road and they're good advertising for us. But no, they're not like labeled courtesy vehicle or loaner or anything like that. No.
But my mind goes back to that insurance piece too, right? I mean, now I get hit by somebody driving that car, and if, depending on where my head is at, I'm not a lawsuit kind of person. So, whatever, right?
Right.
I think the last car accident I was in, or one of the ones that jumped out at me, was I actually hugged the other guy because he was shaking and nervous. I'm like, it's okay. We're all alive. That's what mattered. Who cares about the car? They can be replaced. Nonetheless, yes, there are people who are like, hey, there's money here. And that's an awful attitude. But I like the fact, Stephan, that you actually made it uniform, very, very professional setup, right? You bought the same car. You have the fleet is the same. The cars are all decked out the same. Weather is an interesting thing to consider, I would think. If it's a rental, it's on them. If you don't know how to drive in snow. So around where I live, people will jump on the Facebook community and say, how are the roads? And every time I want to yell, if you are concerned about the roads, then maybe you shouldn't even be trying to drive.
Just stay home.
If you're asking about it, I don't want you on the road because your confidence is obviously low. So no, whereas, if it's a blizzard, I used to do this all the time. I used to love just jumping out in my Jeep and just driving around and looking for people who were stuck. And I would just hook them up and pull them out of the ditch. And it was just fun. So of course, there was probably insurance ramifications with that. There was no logo on the side of my Jeep, and I would never share my name. And so I didn't wear a COVID mask. This was long before that. In all seriousness, though, does weather change how you feel about renting out those cars or doing the ride shares? I mean, you're going to put your wife in a car and it's the middle of a blizzard?
Yeah. It does change it a little bit. I mean, when the weather's bad or if the roads are slick or whatever visibility is bad, I don't really want my wife in the car taking a customer somewhere else, taking them 10 miles away and then driving back. She doesn't like driving in bad weather anyway, or on grid. So they know right up front when she doesn't want to do it. But typically, like if it's that bad here, those are days where customers call and ask to reschedule because they're not going to bring their car.
Okay.
Anyway, if the roads are that bad. And if it's a sketchy weather situation, a lot of times I wind up giving them a ride. If that's
interesting.
What we need to do.
Stephan, does weather change for you at all?
No, I mean, kind of like what Brian was saying. If it's bad, people won't come out. If they're one of our rentals, no different than if they're driving their car is kind of how we view it. I've never had that issue. And I mean, in all reality, Indiana we haven't seen winter like we used to see 10 years ago. So
okay.
It hasn't been a huge issue for us.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah. So I'm probably an extremely rare customer. I actually take my Jeep to my mechanic and then I walk home. It's only 3 miles. And they've actually offered me rides. I'm like, no, I'm fat. I need the exercise. It's fine. Like, it's okay. The only time I've been burnt with that was actually about 7 years ago. And I was walking back. I was at the end of my driveway, so I still had another 3 miles to get to the shop. And I got a phone call from my mother-in-law who had picked up my son at preschool. And she said, I was just in a car accident. Please come quick. So that's all I knew, was that my son and my mother-in-law were in a car accident, and I didn't have a car to come right away. So I actually ran those 3 miles. That was a feat. Let me tell you, the mechanic's like, are you okay? Do we need to call ambulance? Are you okay? Card, pay. Jeez. So on that day, it would have been nice to have had a rental. Now, so Stephan, is it a fallback for you? It feels like it's a fallback for you as opposed to something you're pushing.
We don't push it hard unless customers really want it. We prefer the shuttle.
Why not? It's a profit center. Why not rent to everybody?
I've never thought about that.
Let me back up. And maybe I'm being too close to the vest. How profitable is it? Profitable? Is it a profit center?
It's nothing big. Like this year, we probably, over the entirety of 2024, maybe $7,000 we profited off of it.
Okay.
Which was enough. We took that as the down payment, bought another 2025 Chevy Track. It pays for its maintenance. It pays for the rental service and the insurance, the car washes, because we got a local car wash we run them through, and then turn a small profit at the end of the day. And the customers that do utilize it, they love that as an option.
All right. So it's a fallback, but you don't actually push it. It's just when you find out that the shuttle isn't good enough, that's when you actually mention it.
Yeah. If they know that they're going to be we know we're going to have the vehicle for like 3 to 4 days, we try to push it.
Yeah. Right. So if it's more than a 1-day job, the decals that you have on it, is it the shop or is it the name of the rental company?
So currently it was the name of the shop, but they're actually in the works of redecaling them to the name of the rental business.
So now what you're going to do is you're going to sublet that rental service to other shops in the area.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Is that an idea?
That sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so I find it also interesting, the price difference. I mean, for $20 a day in Michigan, like that's a no-brainer. I might do that just so that I have the option of being able to pick up and go in case my mother-in-law calls. But at $50 or $75, I probably would flinch. But so what is your experience with the price points?
None. We haven't had any pushback. A lot of the reason that you got to think of the market that we're in, there's nobody else that offers it. And if you rent from Enterprise, it's all a reservation-based rental. And our Enterprise, even the economy ones, are $67 a day.
Okay.
Just the location and not having the convenience of having the vehicle. So that was one thing I took into consideration when we were doing this. Is it's like, okay, how are we going to make it more competitive, but yet we still can be able to make a little bit off of it?
Yeah.
Just to lead break even. You know, it's more still customer convenience, but I want them to have a little bit of the responsibility of paying for that vehicle on their shoulder, so we wouldn't get them returned back to us in the work.
Right. Yeah, no, and it makes sense that if they actually have skin in the game, they're not going to be as likely to trash it or be disrespectful for it. All right, so Brian, you're the one that's actually tried to explore all these different options. I mean, what say you to the idea of rental service? Creating, and you already mentioned you like the idea of the shuttle.
Yeah.
Van.
I think the shuttle's a great idea.
The shuttle van, not the individual rides like you're currently in.
I think that in our location, we would run that more than twice a day, though. We would probably run it, 8:30 in the morning. We'd run it again at noon, run it again at 1:30, and then at like 4 o'clock.
Because we are at needed basis. Somebody needs a ride now, we'll go give them a ride right now.
Sure. Yeah, and that's what we do right now, too.
Yeah.
We just give each person a ride as they need it, as long as someone's available to drive them. But I don't know, I guess if our customers knew we had a shuttle service, they would know exactly what to expect, when they could get a ride without having to arrange it with us. My service writer's awesome about asking if they can drop it off and leave it for the day, or if they need a ride home, or if they need a vehicle. Now we're done asking if they need a vehicle for now.
Right.
And everybody usually tells us ahead of time, so it's not a surprise that someone needs a ride most of the time when they come in. I did want to say the nice part about giving individual rides to customers when they come in is it does help build a good relationship with them. I actually just had a customer come in this morning. He came in and he says, where's my Uber picking me up at? And he's talking about my wife because she gives him a ride home every time he brings a goal. And he's like, I'll be at the front door in a second. Some of our customers really look forward to getting a ride from her specifically, I think.
Okay.
Is good for building customer relationships. And she does come back with stories every once in a while that, you know, when you get in a one-on-one setting with someone outside of like the service counter, they'll tell you stories about their life and stuff that's going on and crazy things that have happened. They don't want to ride in a Chevy pickup because they had a bad experience when they were a teenager. So make sure we take them in the Ford Explorer and not the Chevy pickup.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So,
and that's just a note that you're leaving inside your CRM.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, so I've got a bunch of different thoughts there. If you were to go with the shuttle van, you need to completely deck it out on the inside so that it feels luxurious. And then you need to put on the outside, not just the name of the shop, but the only shop with a luxury shuttle service, right?
Yeah. Luxury courtesy shuttle.
A 70-inch TV in there with an Xbox.
Yeah,
Nice.
there you go. No, you want them to get out of the van when you get where you're going spots.
You could go the other route and do the retro van, have a shag carpet and maybe some wood panel.
Heart-shaped
So
windows.
that might actually encourage the weed. But anyway, so I get it. It's just the type of relationships that you can build on a one-on-one basis outside the shop. That's really nice. And I like that you're capturing some of that. But my mind still goes to even the insurance side of that, as well as I don't know. I'm about to say something really, really awful. Brian, are you ready?
Go for it.
Because really what was in my mind was the other side. One of your mechanics gives someone else a ride, and it's a timid young lady who then makes a false claim against your mechanic.
Hadn't even considered that.
They're on a one-on-one spot together. So what kind of recording device is actually in the car to prove, right?
No, that you guys have cameras in your shuttle vans?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. The camera we have faces the road, but there is a microphone that is constantly recording everything as they're driving. So you can't see the passengers, but you can hear them.
That one, that I'm wondering, the forward, like a school bus.
I don't know.
Show kids in the bus, right?
And maybe I'm overthinking it.
I don't think you're overthinking it. Somebody out there is probably looking to do that.
You're not in Iowa.
Not in Iowa, no, absolutely.
No.
Or anywhere Brian and Stephan are done.
Was protecting the employee and protecting the reputation. And, again, it's all about what could go wrong and plan so that you're protected. Your shop is protected, right?
Right.
Is really where my win. I'm glad that we don't have any horror stories on that front. That's actually comforting in some level. But what other things could possibly go wrong in some of these setups? What haven't we explored?
Things people leave in vehicles.
Well, we joked about crack and guns, but I mean, you're talking about just personal effects.
I know. Yes, I have found crack in a vehicle.
Really?
In an Enterprise rented car, because we check them in, and the customer, believe it or not, called us and said, I left something in the back seat of the vehicle.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And yes, we did get to experience it, but being an Enterprise car, we just reported it to Enterprise and let them do with it what they will.
So you don't know how they dealt with it?
No, I did find out how they dealt with it.
But you don't want to share?
They just disposed of it and didn't report it to the police because it isn't worth the legalities of it.
Interesting. That's really interesting. But also just miscellaneous personal effects. They just come back and pick it up, I guess, if it's simple enough. Any horror stories or fun stories on that front, Stephan? Have you come? No.
We've had a car seat left, but they obviously came after that pretty quick. So,
yeah,
relap while they're driving in.
Yeah, we haven't really had any leaving stuff in cars. So,
okay.
No.
Right. What other things are we not exploring, or that we should be exploring? Like, what are the holes in your system, Stephan? It sounds like a really good setup. It does sound like an opportunity to actually outsource it to other shops if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Where are your weakest points, do you think?
Not having enough vehicles.
Okay.
They're always all out. So like right now, all 7 of them are gone.
Okay.
So,
and that's probably largely the reason that you're pushing the shuttle first, right? Is because I think you mentioned that or alluded to that. So if you doubled your fleet, you would push more for the rentals.
If they were available, we try to get people in them. But
Okay.
typically you might have one available that day on both given day. We do have one vehicle that we let go for a courtesy, but that's if we have a comeback or if somebody's in a really bad way and can't afford anything, then we do have one vehicle that we loan out for that. But they still have to go through our rental program and fill out the contract, and the liability is still all on them. It's just at the end of the day, when we go to close that ticket out, you just hit no charge on the rental and they get it for free. That is our oldest and grossest vehicle in the fleet, which is an old Chevy Cruze. And it, of course, cost us a lot of money in maintenance. If you guys all know the Cruze issues, they're constant. As far as loophole goes or holes in the system, we have had issues with people not putting gas back in vehicle, even though we think when we rent them out to fill them up or you're getting charged. It's hard to charge people for that because our check-in process wasn't really followed to a T. So I have now a GPS tracking system that tracks all the details of the vehicle, including the fuel used. And if they don't return it with the exact same amount of fuel that they checked it out with, the system automatically charges them for it. So it's a pretty cool system. And that we just implemented 4 weeks ago, or maybe 5 weeks ago. But we can geofence around and then within 100 to 200 mile radius, whatever we pick, it notifies the speeding, it notifies the vehicle has a check engine light comes on or overheat, that kind of stuff.
It sends you a text, and then you send them a text message and see if they reply while driving.
Oh, we notify them too. So it goes on their cell phone too.
Stephan, I have a question. If a customer comes in to rent your vehicle and say they have just no fault insurance on the vehicle that they own, is there an insurance they can purchase from you to cover the vehicle?
No, they just can't rent the vehicle at that point.
You just don't let them rent it. Okay.
There might be an option for that somewhere out there that I haven't stumbled across yet, but I haven't looked into it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm also thinking that, the no fault insurance, I imagine the insurance requirements from state to state vary.
True.
And so, making sure that you have that confident relationship with your insurance agent. Rooney, you said you were going to be reviewing that shortly with one of your agents. What questions do you want to ask here so that you can have the answers or questions that you should be asking them?
I think we already talked about everything. I'm going to ask my insurance agent when he comes in.
Well, asking about the type of insurance that they're required to have if you want to do a rental, right?
Yeah, that would be one. I mean, I'm going to talk to him about doing a rental, like a no cost or no charge rental, if that's different, or if they even will cover us for that. I don't know if they, but because it's something that we haven't had in the past. We're looking at this new insurance company. I had like a 60% increase in my insurance in the first quarter of 2024.
Across the board?
Yeah. I mean, so we do our garage keepers and our property insurance, and then our umbrella that covers everything and all of our goals. It's all one premium. So like if it was $2,400 a month, I went to almost $4,000. So we had some interesting conversations about why. And none of them were anything that we caused. Like we didn't have the accident, we didn't have any claims. We didn't have anything that caused it to do that. So we just were shopping. So Federated's coming in today for us to talk about, hopefully, premium pricing. Yeah, we are going to have some conversations with customers driving our vehicles. Our employees driving our vehicles. Never really dug into that with an insurance agent before. Our current insurance company has said, don't do this, don't do that. We're really done any investigating on whether we are or are not doing it the way we should.
I'm wondering what questions to ask the insurance rep to see whether or not they actually have the answers. If they're even the right agency or the right company to place us with. Now, so why did you end up with Lancer?
I'm in the coaching group called Shop Fix Academy.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a lot of guys in there that have used Lancer. So I just asked the community that I was in with Shop Fix, and we got to use for your loaner fleet or your rental fleet. And that was the most common one that came out. So I did my research on them and I absolutely love the program.
And is that part of the shoploaner.com program, or is that a separate entity?
Yeah.
As a separate entity. And they're handling all the contract type and those types of rules and guidelines to make sure that you have it structured correctly.
Yeah.
So you didn't even have to research to figure out how to handle the language or whatnot. Is that all the shop owner is doing, is providing the payment and the customer contract, or is there more to it?
So it's kind of like a point of sale system for that rental company, like what Mitchell or Ted Metric would be for the auto repair shop. It has all your vehicles listed out in the fleet. Yeah, and it'll keep track of the maintenance and send you maintenance reminders, let you know when they're rented out, when they're not rented out. You can reserve the cars on it, so you know, hey, so-and-so needs it at such date, so don't go out on that date to anybody else. So really, it's its own point of sale system. You know, the credit card entry goes right in there, and then when you check it out, it just charges the credit card from there and runs through Stripe, and then deposit it to your account.
Interesting.
That's also the GPS tracker also runs all through the shoploaner.com program.
Oh, that was just an add-on that you used with them. That was all part of that setup. Okay. And do they have a relationship with Lancer, or is it a complete,
totally.
Maybe they're maybe referral partners at best.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Cause when we did them for courtesies, we still ran everything through Shop Loaner. You don't put a charge on it.
Okay.
But that way you're covered with the contract, and it's got the customer's information, all their details, their insurance and their driver's license, all that fun stuff. We did require credit card with a $25 deposit, but when they turn the car back in, they will get the deposit. At least your card's on file. So they bring the vehicle back and it's filthy and you got to charge them to clean it. At least their card is on file.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't like just giving it away for free anymore. So
right. And with the card on file, you don't actually have access to the actual number. It's stored it's vaulted in the shoploaner.com system. All right. My mind is jumping around here. Brian, have you looked at the video for the Finkle shuttle? Like, is that something that you guys actually review? It's just, you store it. You've never even needed to look at it.
No.
You have never looked at it.
No.
Okay. So it's never been needed.
No.
Thankfully, but you have it as a peace of mind.
Yeah. Just in case.
Who came up with why? What led you to doing that?
Watching too many crime shows on Discovery ID.
Okay. Now, is there also GPS in that?
Yes. Yep.
And are you yelling at the driver for going too fast?
No, I've been fortunate. I've never had, but again, around here, when you're driving on these roads at 8 a.m. and at 4 p.m., there's generally enough traffic where you don't have the ability to go too quick.
Right. So now my mind goes to a shuttle service. I wonder if there's a shop out there that actually shuttles people on motorcycles.
Anything's possible. No, I will admit I've had people call me and say that our van, because it's all decaled up with our name, phone number, and everything on it, have called me and said, your driver has just cut me off.
Okay.
And then when the driver gets back, I talk to the driver and they're like, well, no, I know nothing of the sorts. And of course, they're not going to fully come clean. But then maybe twice I could say I've had a call.
I'm not one to usually call those numbers. I don't know who is, but I will confess that one time I did call the company that was on the vehicle, specifically because I watched the driver throw trash out the window while driving.
No.
like what? No, like that's just. And so, yeah, I have a heavy aversion against littering that just drives me. I have zero tolerance for littering. Anyway, I can't imagine wasting the time with a phone call just because I didn't like how somebody else was driving. I've sometimes wondered if I could just reach out to them to let them know that their taillight's out. So you've said 2, maybe 3 times it's happened in the entire years that you've been doing the show.
That's about it.
Stephan, have you had anyone call and complain about people who are in the cars?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I had one customer call and complain. Our customer was getting on the interstate and was going on the on-ramp too slow. And then the people behind them started honking the horn at him. And our customer in the vehicle proceeded to lean out of the window, turn around to flip them off and start yelling at them. So immediately after that phone call, I called that customer up. We didn't do any such thing. And it was a husband or wife. And we knew that customer, and they weren't that type. They just weren't that type of person. So we're like, well, We didn't think that you would do something like that, but we thought somebody called it in, so let's at least call you and talk to you about it. And we've had some others where, oh, your LawnForYourGarage.com vehicle down the road, or they cut us off, and just kind of take it with a grain of salt, because like you were saying, take the time to call that kind of stuff. Now that we have GPS on them and we know where they're at, how fast they're going, it potentially be a whole different ballgame. But we probably haven't had a call like that in a year.
Well, and I wonder if the GPS keeps them in line.
Probably.
The drivers, right?
Yeah.
But also I wonder like what that call would sound like if you push back. No, actually, we're looking at the GPS of that particular person, and they never breached 35 miles an hour or whatever the speed limit is.
Yeah.
But all in all, I think it's there's more benefit to having the name and as you put, the contact information on the vehicles than not. I think that's a no-brainer to get the word out that you exist and you're providing this service, whatever the service is. So, okay, well, what other questions should we be thinking about? If someone is listening to this show and they're thinking about trying to change up how they're doing it, what questions should we be helping them think through? Anything that come to mind at all?
We can talk some of the benefit of having a courtesy vehicle or rental, whichever you prefer, in turn be an expense line on your P&L. And you can, so for me, like I rent my cars, Lawn for Your Garage rents the cars from my rental company for $1,200 a month per store. So
nice.
It's a way to get a little bit of money off the bottom line of your business and get filtered into another business. So it's not necessarily to the extreme as what.
Okay.
When I ran,
did you come up with that idea, or did your accountant tell you to do that?
I don't remember. Actually, I've always done it that way. So
okay,
my accountant has gone along with it.
Must be okay then.
Yeah, it must be okay. Before I entered as a rental business, I charged my shop probably 3 times as much for the vehicle, but because the vehicle are turning their own profit now, I don't charge the shops near as much. So,
all right. Well, and I'm also thinking that, if you had a profit this year and your accountant comes back to you and says, okay, you need to spend some money so that you don't get hit, you could always buy another Trax or give the shop a bill for repairs to that vehicle, right? I mean, that's the other thing. I guess it's time for more than just an oil change of the shuttle van. Let me replace the engine in this. So yeah, I wonder what that would look like if it was actually a luxurious type vehicle, like a limo type vehicle. I wonder if anyone has ever actually bothered to go to that extent. We've joked about it just now, but I mean, do you have any in your coaching groups? Do you have anybody that is a say BMW specialist and does the makeup of their customer to change this conversation at all? Are you guys, all 3 of you, in coaching groups?
I am not, no.
Okay. Stephan, you mentioned Shop Fix. Rooney, you're
repair shop of tomorrow.
Repair shop of tomorrow. Okay. And are any of them specialists, or are they all general repair shops?
Some of them are specialists.
Yeah, we've got several that are specialists, but I couldn't tell you if they run any different type of cars. And a lot of who I am friends with and meet with are people in bigger cities that have the Ubers, and a lot of them incur the Uber charges and don't even charge the customer. It's just a convenience to the customer. So, like, straight up on it, I'm the only one that I know that actually rents cars. I don't know anybody else that does that. Most of the guys that I'm friends with, or the shop owners that I know, all do them as courtesy. But a lot of them run them the same way through that shop owner program and through their insurance, but they run them as courtesy. They've got all different. A lot of them run Hondas or Toyotas. Volkswagen's a common one that a lot of them run. I just choose Chevy Trax because I got a friend that owns a dealership and I like getting into my business.
Well, and your setup requires a lot more investment than another scenario, but it looks very, very formal and very, very together, which is nice. Brian, when you've talked to the other people in your coaching group, have they brought up, you said that you do have specialists. Have you ever talked to them about what their experiences are with these things?
I haven't. A lot of similar conversations happen about how we do things, specifically our standard operating procedures. And it seems like across the board, everybody kind of does a lot of the same things. As far as vehicles, rentals, and loaners, we haven't had those conversations in my coaching group, but I think we might now.
Okay.
Put it out there. And I do feel like shops that specialize, like BMW or Mercedes or whatever, European cars, their clientele probably would prefer a vehicle that's this luxury level as what they brought in to get repaired. If I was driving a BMW and took it to a BMW specialty shop and
they gave you a Pinto,
I'd be expecting what?
And they gave you a Pinto?
Yeah.
From like 1975?
I'd probably be okay. As long as it had slicks on the back and supercharged engine, I'd be happy with that.
Okay.
But I think those ones probably would prefer that.
Yeah.
You don't want to be put in Chevy Trax, maybe.
Well, I would also think that you'd want a similar sized vehicle, right? Like, because you're used to driving it, right? So, if you're used to driving a small sedan, don't put them into an F-150. Like they don't know what to do with it, right? Or even bigger, right? So, but okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. So is there any other things that let's try to start wrapping up, I think. Are there any other things that we haven't discussed that we should have been? Stephan, you've been seeming like you've been dealing with this a little bit longer than your evolution has been a little bit more than others. Is there anything that we've missed in the topics here?
I would, if you're looking to add courtesy vehicle fleet, or like Rooney, you've already kind of got one, but if you actually wanted to make it more legitimate, the return you see on it is pretty significant as far as your average repair order on the vehicle getting repaired that have a vehicle, because they don't feel the pressure of, hey, I need my vehicle back right now.
Because they have the rental.
Yeah. And now I don't have any statistics on that. I just could tell you that we got the courtesy vehicles and started utilizing them. Our average repair order did increase by about $100 per week on ARO. Okay. We also try to utilize that with waiter oil changes. So if Comfort came in with a waiter and say, hey, you need brakes, but they don't want to do it right now because they're there waiting. Well, here's a vehicle for you. Sure. Take your vehicle for half the day, we'll get your brakes done, come back later, and they'll be ready. But that's the way for you, Rooney. You do them as courtesy. You could really use it to your benefit if you actually sell it to the customer and use it as a tool for customer service than just, oh, do you need a ride here? You try to utilize them more as a tool.
It makes a lot of sense, actually.
Added sale.
You definitely don't have that where I'm at.
Getting your average repair order up and providing that convenience to the customer. So there's, when you're talking about doing courtesy vehicles, there's a lot of different aspects to it.
I'm thinking about Finkle's situation and, with the defined shuttle times of morning and afternoon or evening, you actually don't have that option of trying to upsell them on the spot, right?
No.
They come in they're waiting for the oil change. They need brakes. Now you need to schedule for a different time, a different day.
Correct.
I wonder if you were to add a noontime shuttle, if that would actually change things.
We use it to our benefit. Like Stephan said, we try to use it as a tool. If we have a job in here and a customer has to get back to work at noon because they're here for a waiter oil change and we need the work at that moment, we'll get you a ride home or back to the office, and then we'll be back at 4 to get you.
Sure. Guidelines, not hard stone. Yeah.
Because again, there's nowhere far we ever have to drive.
Right. Interesting. So any final thoughts of your experience and evolution going from what you used to do into the enterprise and shuttle? Is there anything you want to add to your evolution, Brian?
No, I mean, every shop, things are going to work differently for each shop. I mean, me being in the concrete jungle is going to work here, where what I do won't work for these two gentlemen.
Yep.
But I do like how Stephan has his laid out. It's got my brain kind of thinking things a little bit, because I can see where it could be profitable to do what he's doing.
Right. And you've got the garage space to have the whole fleet there. So
plenty of room.
Got to make sure that enterprise doesn't change shops after you.
Well, no, I'd still keep them in my back pocket.
Okay. Yeah, still send them one a month.
When I get that Escalade in here and that customer wants to be in an Escalade, well, here you go.
Right. So you would be offering potentially the higher end.
But now,
well, that's where I was going with that, right? Is you have two options. You've got the Enterprise $20, or you've got the Escalade $250.
Right.
So, with spinning rims. Rooney, do you believe you've got all the questions you're ready for your insurance agency meeting that's coming up next?
I think I have plenty for a long conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
For me and my agent.
Well, I've started a Facebook group, and I'm actually going to change the name of the Facebook group. But the premise of this private group is specifically to continue to ask questions and discuss the topic of the podcast inside the group with people who actually weren't here in the panel. And so I also want to invite you guys to be a part of that conversation. And Brian, so after you've talked to that agent, if you want to bring those questions, and I'd love to actually have that in the group and then kind of continue that conversation there. I'll make sure that you guys get the invitation. But for those who are listening, it's going to be a link underneath resources in the show notes. And the way it's set up is it's not just an open group for everybody. Like we do a very light screening to make sure that you are connected to a repair shop and not just trying to sell stuff to repair shops. So that's that. Like I said, there'll be a link in the show notes for that. I really appreciate the time that you guys have given for each other, for us, and for the people who are listening into the podcast here. And I want to thank you for just sharing the experiences. I look forward to continuing the conversation. So without further ado, again, I'm Brad Hurlock. This is the Garage Grit Podcast. And thank you for listening. And the resources will be in the show notes to some of the coaches that we've talked about, as well as the insurance companies that we talked about, as well as the shop loaner. So by all means, please come back and keep listening. And before I finalize the close out with that, I do have one last question for all three of you. What should be my February or April or May topic? What would you like to hear if you were listening to the Garage Grit Podcast? What kind of conversations would you be interested in? Topics would you be interested in hearing what other shops are doing?
Shop management programs.
Good.
I'd like to hear what other shops are doing with discounted services. So like
What's that?
marketing for 50 off of 300 or 100 off of $500 purchase. I'm curious to see what other shops are doing with that and what kind of return on investment they have there with that kind of work.
Okay. All right, good.
So mine's a little bit along the lines of Mr. Rooney, but I'd like to hear some ideas about slow day marketing technique and how to send out, or what people do to send out quick marketing blasts to try to get their base filled up immediately.
On the dime.
A cheesy gimmick.
Or cheesy gimmick, or desperate for cars.
Desperate for work.
Like, I mean, you and I know that that's the nature of the business sometimes. Like we even talked about how people will reschedule on bad weather days. You're not going to overcome that. So how do you do it? Are you trying to do text message marketing? Has anyone tried to push out blasts?
I do.
Yep.
You too.
And Brian, I know that you're using Bolt On for that. So what experience have you had with getting responses from those text messages?
At best, 10%.
10%. How about you, Stephan? What are you using?
So I use a local guy that we kind of created our own program, but it runs like the other CRM. I'd say depending on what we shove out there and how many clients we hit, it's sometimes 10 to 15% return on.
How about you, Rooney?
So we use Kikui for our CRM, and we can do a text or an email blast. We actually have a template in there that's a slow day.
Yep.
Fill your kind of thing. Seems like a lot of people just ignore that message, but don't have an immediate need for something, so they're not coming in.
Yeah.
At least that's how I see that. But
right. And just so a point of reference, AA Shop Marketing, we're a digital marketing company for repair shops, but we aren't involved in the text message blasts. But I can tell you that it's helpful to put yourself in the recipient's shoes. And if you get a generic message, it feels like a generic message. And so anything that you can do to personalize that message, and not necessarily just dropping, fields in. We picked up the last time we saw your car was on date, right? Like if you could word it, Brian, in a way that makes it sound like it's coming from your wife, your customers might actually feel like it's coming from your wife directly to them.
mm-hmm.
And that'll improve your response rate to something like that.
Sure.
If it can make it sound like your service advisor, if it sounds like their voice or whatever the connection is that they have with your shop.
Mm-hmm.
The other idea that I heard that I found really, really interesting was intentionally put typos so that they know it's not a computer automated.
So it seems like a human typed it.
Right.
And that makes sense.
That's bizarre.
Brad, you said that same thing to me when we first started talking.
Yep.
I switched from one company that was just mentioned to the company I'm with now, and it was a night and day difference.
Okay. The response times are significantly higher now.
Yeah, the personal message that's automated was by far huge. I get customers all the time, literally by the answers they give, they think it's me sending them the message.
That's from Bolt-On, Brian.
Yep, I left for Bolt-On.
We have Bolt-On for our DVI, so we probably have access to that. No, they have that available, so no, I'll look at that for sure.
We'll be happy.
Thank you.
All right. Well, all of this extra conversation came as a result of actually just talking about what you want to talk about next. And so I guess we actually touched on that a little bit.
But I go another hour?
Right. I get pretty how we do ours. Yeah. It's not any of those big brands, but
Are you trying to send a personalized type message, or are you sending out a generic blast?
It's personalized. We create every message we send out, so very personalized. The personalized versus the generic one that every other shop uses is a totally different game changer. Night and day, just night and day. Every message we send out for campaign purposes is always thought out. We run through it together. It's got our own personal sales on it and our own little touches. It definitely hinders that return rate.
So when we're talking about marketing for slow days, one of the questions I'll probably be asking is, what patterns are you seeing with those slow days? Can you predict them in advance? And what messages can you send out in advance to try to get them to be scheduled on those potential slow days? I've worked with a couple of shops where they're doing a scenario where they offer a discount. You just have to schedule it in advance. So even if you schedule it for February 15th, as long as it's scheduled before Christmas, you're going to get this discount. It's just trying to pre-book and make sure. That doesn't necessarily mean that February 15th is going to be a slow day for them, right? All right. Well, these are good. I appreciate these additional ideas for topics, and we'll look into adding those in February and March and April. In January, we're going to be talking about community events and community involvement from our shops. So I'm looking forward to that. And again, thank you for attending, and please hop out to that Facebook page. Thank you for your time. Have a good one.
Pleasure meeting everybody.
Thank you.